So the PBS, they interviewed this Ukrainian mayor, and I'm just going to play the clip for you. Just watch this video and tell me if, anything stands out to you, right? If you can see anything a little peculiar. Take a look.
Authority and allow them to patrol the streets, de-arm those who have weapons, and detain those who resist. In the end, I told them, just as Ukrainian soldiers told a Russian warship, go f*** yourself.
The rejected Russians walked out holding grenades in their hands. Semenychin actually escorted them and made sure they drove away.
And do you fear that they'll come back and either occupy or try and destroy the city?
Yes, of course we are concerned, and this concern is not groundless. There's a big unit near our town, and using the weapons they have, they could destroy our town.
Do you see it yet? Do you see it? I'll give you a clue. Look at the photo. Look at the portrait that's hanging on the wall behind him.
But we are not afraid. We are ready to fight till the end, till the victorious end, to defeat these Russian cockroaches.
Jesus Christ. Okay, let me break it down for you. That person behind him on the wall is a famous Ukrainian Nazi collaborator, right? His name is Stepan Bandera, and he participated in the Holocaust in Ukraine. So he killed he helped the Nazis to kill Poles, right? Polish people, and he's a straight up Nazi collaborator. That's it. That's all you need to know about him. And there you go. So here's a picture of him. You can see. All right. So that's who he has on the wall behind him. This Ukrainian mayor. He has a portrait of a Nazi collaborator on the wall behind him, and he is of course himself a neo-Nazi. This mayor, because there's actually another article about him. Let me read this to you. This is from the Jerusalem Post. Okay. The headline says local Jews in shock after Ukrainian city of Konotop elects neo-Nazi mayor. Do you want to take a guess? Just take a guess who that mayor is. Just take a guess. It couldn't be the same guy, could it? Oh, yes, it is. It's him. It's this neo-Nazi scumbag. It's the same. It's the one and only. Right, so let's continue with the article. Okay? This was published in 2015. All right? This article. But this interview that I just showed you, this is from 2 days ago. It's from March 4th. Okay? Let's continue with the article. They say, 2 months after local elections were held across Ukraine, residents of the small northern city of Konotop are expressing shock and dismay over the behavior of a newly chosen mayor, Artem Semenychin, of the neo-Nazi Svoboda party. Okay? According to reports, Semenychin drives around in a car bearing the number 1488, which is a numerological reference to the phrases, "We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children," and Heil Hitler. He also replaced the picture of the president, Poroshenko, in his office with a portrait of Ukrainian national leader and Nazi collaborator, Stepan Bandera. There's the portrait for you, right? And refused to fly the city's official flag at the opening meeting of the city council because he objected to the Star of David, right? So that's the religious symbol of Judaism. The Star of David was emblazoned on it, and the flag also features a Muslim crescent and a cross. So all three monotheistic religions there, Abrahamic religions, and he objected to it. And so Svoboda, which is known as the Socialist National Party of Ukraine, until 2004, has been accused of being a neo-Nazi party by Ukrainian Jews. And while party leaders have a history of making anti-Semitic remarks, their rhetoric has toned down because they're trying to go mainstream. Yeah, okay, but that doesn't really change anything. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's quite incredible. Take a look at this. For the Jews of Konotop, however, worries persist, with Bezrushko, the Ukrainian representative of the US-based National Coalition supporting Eurasian Jewry, saying he believed residents who generally get along well with local Jews voted for Semenychin because he projected an image of someone who could bring change and reform a corrupt system. Yeah, I don't really know what kind of change you're going to expect from a neo-Nazi, but, good luck with that. In any case, I just wanted to show this to you because it's such a perfect example, this PBS interview, of how the Western media tries to rehabilitate what's happening in Ukraine and specifically the neo-Nazis. They always tell you that, I mean, this is even if they address it, they usually don't mention it at all. I mean, there's nothing in this interview about that, right? But usually they tell you that, well, the neo-Nazis, it's just a tiny element of Ukrainian politics and the Ukrainian military and Ukrainians in general. Sure, obviously we're not sitting here and saying all Ukrainians are neo-Nazis. That's obviously wrong. The problem is, though, that a significant chunk of the political apparatus, the military apparatus, like the Ukrainian National Guard, does in fact contain neo-Nazis, right? I mean, the Svoboda Party is one example. The Azov Battalion that you've always heard about is another example. That's part of the Ukrainian National Guard. And the other day they were posting on Twitter how they're putting the bullets for their guns. I mean, they showed a video of it, and they just proudly posted on Twitter that they're putting the bullets in pig fat so they can kill Muslims from Chechnya, right? Which they called orcs. So, I mean, they don't even bother hiding it. They don't even bother hiding it. And here they're just interviewing this guy like there's not a care in the world, just like a casual Nazi collaborator in the background. What of it? What's so bad about that? Nothing special. Now, I don't know if PBS specifically blurred the background to hide that. I don't think that's what happened. I think it's just Zoom. If you do a call on Zoom, it blurs the background. Correct me if I'm wrong, but most people have speculated that's what that is. So I'm not necessarily accusing PBS of covering it up that way, but I am definitely pointing to the fact that PBS and other outlets cover up the neo-Nazi element in other ways. It's lying by omission. They don't tell you. They omit this, and then you're given a completely different picture of what's going on. And again, when Putin, whatever you want to think of Russia, whatever you want to think of this special operation, as he called it, when he says denazify Ukraine, this is what he's talking about. He's referring to people like this. Just so you know that it's not completely made up and imagined. There are people like this. It's not the majority. It's from what I can tell, it's certainly a minority, but it's a strong one and a powerful one, and they've been allowed to operate freely. The President Zelensky, they say that he's Jewish. So how can you say that there are neo-Nazis in Ukraine? Yeah, but I mean, both things are true. Zelensky's Jewish, and there are neo-Nazis in Ukraine. They're both true. And what Zelensky did is he basically, he's let these groups, these militias, continue their ethnic cleansing, as Putin called it, or genocide of Russian speakers, of ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine during the last years. I mean, if you look at, for example, the UN figures, let's take the United Nations. This is from the UN. Make of it what you will. They said that 80%. This is just the last years, 2018, 2021. 80% of people who have been killed in Donbass region in eastern Ukraine are where they're in separatist-held areas, which implies that they are indeed either not necessarily Russian ethnic, but they're from ethnic minorities, and that they've been shelled and targeted. And so this is what people who are advocating or defending Russia's side of things point to. But again, these are UN figures, so it's not really just a Russian thing. You can just take the figures and see them for yourself. But yeah, they just going back to Zelensky, the guy, he's basically let these neo-Nazi groups continue and turned a blind eye, just putting it very simply, right? I think he made some effort to deal with them, but it didn't work. And the mindset since then has been like, well, let's just not focus on it and hope it goes away. That's not worked. Obviously, that's not worked. And I just think it's shocking because, well, it's shocking and not shocking at the same time, because you might be thinking, why the hell is the U.S. supporting neo-Nazis? Who in their right mind would do that? The U.S. fought the Nazis. Yeah, indeed. Who in their right mind would do that? But that's what's happening. And it shouldn't surprise you if you look at the history of the United States. They always go and look for these fringe groups and then try to bolster their efforts, whether it's separatism or it's terrorism. It doesn't matter. It's a phenomenon that you see globally that is perpetuated and carried out by the U.S. government, specifically the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. I can just point you, for example, to the 80s, when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan from 1979 to 1989. The idea to fight the Soviets was, we're not going to go in directly. We can't, we meaning the Americans, right? They didn't want to go in directly, and risk a direct confrontation with the Russians, because that would obviously escalate things to potentially nuclear war. So how do you fight the Russians in Afghanistan? Well, you arm proxy groups like the Mujahideen, right? So they would have these recruitment offices, and they bring these people from all over the place, not just from inside Afghanistan, just all over. They tell them this is a religious thing, and that's how they would recruit them and get them to go fight the Soviets with U.S. weaponry, like Stinger missiles to shoot down helicopters and other things, right? And they, of course, they received this funding from the CIA, the training from the CIA, and they do it indirectly, but they're doing it. And here's the same thing, right? In Syria, they were doing, because by this point, the Mujahideen had become Al-Qaeda, many of them. And again, you see the same thing in Syria. How do we fight Bashar al-Assad without sending U.S. troops directly, although there are U.S. troops in Syria? But how do you do it without an all-out war? Let's fund a proxy group like the Al-Nusra Front, which is, again, it's just another name for Al-Qaeda. And now it's changed. They rebranded from Al-Nusra to HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. There are other groups, right? They're not U.S. funded necessarily, but they're funded by Qatar or Saudi Arabia, like Faylaq al-Rahman, Jaish al-Islam, and many others, right? I'm not going to go through the whole 50 flavors of jihad. It's too many to name. But the point is well taken, that the U.S. is getting in bed with these fringe groups that you might normally think, well, why would they do that? Because they have opposing values, right? Like the 9/11 was Al-Qaeda. Why would the U.S. go and help Al-Qaeda? You explain it to me, buddy, right? There's geopolitical goals involved. There's the foreign policy objectives involved. That's why. So it's under darkness. It's under the cover of darkness. It's under the table. It's not official, right? They try to hide it, but obviously with time, we find out these things. And so I'm just giving you context to tell you that this shouldn't surprise you that you see shit like this in Ukraine. It shouldn't surprise you at all, because that is the modus operandi, that is the MO of the Western and specifically the US intelligence agencies, is to get in bed with these fringe groups. Another one I could give you an example is the Uyghurs. You only hear about Uyghurs because they say China's committing genocide. Yeah, but there's a Uyghur terrorist group, right? The TPP. Which is in Syria, by the way, in Idlib. They have about 5,000 Uyghurs there who are, what side do you think they're on? Right? So they're with Al-Qaeda, and they're in Idlib, which is Al-Qaeda land, Al-Qaeda territory now. And the US removed them from their list of terrorist groups. Why do you think they did that? Because they want to use them against Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and to use them in Xinjiang in China for separatism, to crack, divide China. And then, of course, they do that with Tibet, with Taiwan. They have multiple ways of doing that, just like they bolster Israel's occupation of the Golan Heights in South Syria instead of the north, right? So they have multiple efforts of doing this, and it shouldn't surprise you. That's my point. It really, really shouldn't surprise you that these people are funded by the U.S. government, and then the U.S. media, the Western media, try to cover that up, and they try not to make too much of a fuss about it, right? And just remember that the next time you hear, the Israelis or the Americans talking about anti-Semitism, because they obviously don't have problems with neo-Nazis, right? They want to come here and convince you that Palestinians, who are Semitic, by the way, Arabs are Semitic as well, they want to come and tell you that Palestinians are anti-Semitic, even though they are Semitic themselves. It's their land. They're born there. If you go back 10 generations, it's from there. And they're fighting to liberate their homeland, and they want to tell you that they are anti-Semitic, and try to stick this European Holocaust guilt on them as if they did the Holocaust. That's a European thing. Arabs did not do the Holocaust, right? But they try to pin that European guilt on Arabs so they can shut you up when you talk about Israeli occupation. And they want to call people who defend Palestinians anti-Semitic, but they obviously, for some reason, they don't have a problem with anti-Semitic neo-Nazis. What the fuck is that? Right? Again, just it's stunning, the hypocrisy, isn't it? Right? It's stunning. So keep that in mind next time you hear that stuff, right? About BDS or whatever else it is, Hamas. Keep that in mind.